So welcome to the PermaTalks. Today's teacher is Steve Reed, and the lecture will be about permaculture in France and the francophone world. Steve is a longtime permaculture educator with over 140 permaculture design courses given. He's also a blogger, and he writes a blog called Misrule, which is on Substack. I actually been there today and read about his article about the electric car and the impact they have, especially the microplastic of the tires. So I will also put the links to his websites into the chat. The topic, permaculture in France and the francophone world, which is something I have no clue about. Really, I don't, because I don't speak French. And sometimes it's really like if you don't speak a language, you have no access to it. So I'm really interested in this lecture personally. Steve, the stage is yours. Welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. It probably seems a bit strange as an English person. Well, I'm not actually English, but anyway, a person whose first language is English, explaining what's happening in France. But I've been living here for a quarter of a century now, and I've been quite active with doing some stuff. Right, kind of interesting that I get you. Thanks very much for the introduction there. It's very nice. We tend to avoid talking about being teachers in France. We talk about being engineers, actually, and or designers, if you like, because that's always first. And I've never heard myself referred to as a blogger either. I always thought I was an author. But anyway, thanks very much for the shout about the Substack thing. Yeah, I have some fun with that, and I have a lot of problems with it as well, because it seems to be, and I've talked to other people about this, that the Substack authors who attract the really big publics are the ones who present all the problems. And if you start coming on and presenting problems and the solutions, people are a lot less interested in hearing about the solutions. They just want to, what's going on my video? They just want to hear about the problems. So that's it's a bit strange, but anyway, I keep on going with that. Right, I've been a designer since 1990. 1992, I got my diploma. That I was based in London at the time, and we set up the Southeast London Permaculture Group, and we started doing some lot of stuff really. And then I left that, and I started running a farm, and I started helping run the British Permaculture Association office. And eventually I packed everything, all of that up, and I moved my family to Brittany. And that was in about 2000, 1999, 2000. Right, when I came over to France, there wasn't a lot of permaculture stuff about, which kinds of really interesting, because there was people already here doing permaculture. Now, am I speaking too fast for everybody? It's okay. Right, thumbs up. All right, nice. Because I tend to accelerate, which is a problem. Maybe I accelerate. This is more because I don't really talk in English very much anyway. Okay, so anyway, one of the people who was already here and doing was about 3 people, 4 people, 5, 6 people. Anyway, so some principal people, and they're still here. Is the Andrew and Jesse Darlington, who have been running they run a farm with sheep, Moroccan sheep, for years and years and years. And I shall just read a little bit that Andy sent me. He sent me an email because I asked him what happened in the early days in France. And here we go. So, hi, Steve. Thanks for your mail. Time has flown, blah, blah, blah. He did 3 of them in Andy Darlington, Jesse Darlington, and Amelia Hazlip. They organized some, what they in English call them PDCs, I think, permaculture design courses. And the first one was in 1985. Okay, so first PDC in Europe was in 1985 in France, and it was run by Sergo Jackson from the Permaculture Institute of North America. And the second one was the year after, run by Lee Harrison from the Institute of Permaculture, the Australian Permaculture Institute. And so that's kind of interesting because there was quite a few people come over for those courses from other countries, in particular, like from the UK, and people like Andy Langford, and that they went back to the UK and started the British Permaculture Association, which is all like big and fluffy now. Over here, we had some quite pioneering people like Amelia Hayslip, who became very well known for her synergistic gardening. Mark Bonfils, who is strangely enough much better known in the UK than he was over here. I was really surprised that nobody in France had ever heard of Mark Bonfils, thanks to Mark Moody, who brought out a book about him called The Harmonious Wheatsmith. We all knew about Mark Bonfils in France, and he was looking at, he was working very hard to develop a sort of Fukuoka style wheat production adapted to northern France. And so he worked a lot on that. He managed it, but it's very complicated. And Amelia Hayslip, as I said, that she was doing that. Then we had there's a few other people. And so there's people doing stuff. There's mainly people who are sort of concentrating on their own places, like Andy and Jesse with their farm and all this sort of stuff. Well, I sort of turned up and started running. We started building a place in Brittany, and we converted the whole barn. My partner at the time she's from that area. She's actually from that place, which is Brittany. I don't know why my thing keeps turning off. It's really weird. Somebody's hacking my telephone. Right, there we are. And where am I? Okay, sorry about that. So we started setting some stuff up there, and I'd run a few courses in the UK, particularly in London and around that stuff. And then I came over to France, and there wasn't really any. There was one person who was running courses, but it was like one a year, and it was an English guy as well, and they were translated into French by his daughter, who was bilingual. So I was looking around. I started getting people asking me if I could start running courses, and I'm sort of going, well, no, I'm not interested in running courses. So why would I do that? Because I'm very busy building my project and stuff like that. Anyway, I got quite a lot of sort of pressure on me, and I said, because we need it. So I said, okay, right, well, we're going to do this strategically anyway. So I started running some courses. At first they were in English, and then I started doing them in French. And one of the very early courses, there was a guy called Pascal Despienne who came along to it. And afterwards, he went back to his. And he set up what is called Brin de Paille in France, which is basically named after Fukuoka's book, One Straw Revolution. So Brin de Paille is a straw in French. And that was sort of like a big public network sort of thing with a forum that went with it and stuff like that. And I was sort of co-founder, founder member with him on that. And then prior to that, I'd already started talking about setting up a permaculture academy, sort of like Langford had done in the UK, Yasha Roja had done in Germany and stuff like that. And I was thinking, well, again, why would I bother doing that? And the reason being was that there was people coming to me saying, well, we want to be designers. And I was thinking, well, we actually need to have some sort of like quality control sort of thing on it, so that people who are designing or people who are running courses, they know what they're talking about. They've got the experience. They've got at least 2 years of practical experience of designing and stuff like that. You're a designer first or an engineer first, and then you go out and teach. So what Morrison said anyway. That's what we've done here. Okay, where am I? And Anyway, it's kind of interesting thing with languages, you see, because academy in English works all right, British Permaculture Academy, academy in German, that works all right. In French, it doesn't work at all. Because what you're getting is when you have a word or a name, like table or whatever, it gives an image in people's minds of something. Like for a Japanese person, the table's a very low thing. For people in France, it's a high thing. It's not the same picture in their mind. And when you say academy to people in France, they immediately get like an image of their mind of the big academies which are up in Paris, which was like suit and ties and special cravats and all this sort of stuff. Very, very sort of formal and massive buildings and all this sort of stuff. And so that didn't work at all for me. And so I sat down and because I was sort of like the most experienced permaculture engineer designer, I sat down and said, okay, right, we're permaculture designers. So what we should be doing is actually designing what we want. If we're going to have a movement, and that's with a small m, it's not a big M, yeah, a little movement, create a movement, then we need to design it and design how it's going to progress and where we want to go with it. So we've got our vision, our objectives, and the stepping stones towards that point. So I discovered, and it was really nice, that somebody said to me, well, you know, in France, we've got these things called the popular universities, Université Populaire. And basically, it's they were set up quite a long time ago, actually. It's like an association. And their objective is to basically to run courses and give information out to people, and people can learn. And these different popular universities are they're simpler, just associations run by sort of normal people, if you like, and they're much more user friendly for French people than an academy is. So we in 2000 and something or other. Hang on. Right, yeah. 2000 2008 must have been. We set up the Université Populaire de Permaculture in France, which was its mission was to be like I said, to have some sort of quality control on the people who are going out and presenting themselves as permaculture engineers or designers, and the people who are going out and running courses. So that the people who are going to proposing courses, for example, PDCs, are people who have got some experience and know what they're talking about. Otherwise, it just sounds hollow, and it's really bad news for us. So we set that up, and then in the design, we said, well, I sort of basically designed it up saying that there's going to be like a network. And at the time, the word chaotic was very popular, which is sort of in between the chaos and order. So it's like not being sort of completely like rigid structure. It was going to be an adaptable structure. And the design for the Université Populaire de Permaculture was that it would get things going. And then because we want always to avoid centralization of anything, we don't want to create another Paris. The idea of the whole of the permaculture, the popular university, was it would simply sort of disappear and be replaced by a network, a horizontal flatland network nodes of what we call a centre de démonstration et formation à la permaculture, which is like permaculture, centre demonstration and teaching centers. Now, each teaching center like that or demonstration center has either somebody who's a designer or engineer living there or working in that project, or it's actually, I don't know what the English word is for that. He's got somebody, he's got a designer who's associated with the project and who's sort of like keeping it going until somebody from the project gets their accreditation, their diploma. So little by little, we're putting that into place. And What's happened over the years is permaculture went from being relatively unknown to it just went completely mental, and it's just all over the place now. It's in the dictionaries. You go into the bookshops. There's I don't know how many books on permaculture. I wrote 3 of them, but anyway. Um, and The courses, there's a lot of people coming to courses, and there's a lot of people out there now who are developing working sites, who are working as permaculture designers or engineers. They set up, I don't know what you call that in English either, sort of bureau d'études, which would be like an architect's partnership or something like that, but actually doing permaculture design. We've also, so what have we insisted on? We've insisted that the people who run courses, as much as we can, who are teaching courses, are people who have got at least 2 years experience on the ground of running that, of being a designer. We've insisted that, and this is coming from Wallace, and it's also makes completely sense, that people are designers first and teachers second. If people it's the other way around, it's just wrong. And we've also tried to keep permaculture as being as accessible and popular in the French way, accessible probably in English, or as possible, which has been which I've actually taken a lot of flack about. Actually, I've been a lot of like insults thrown at me and stuff like that, because I tend to run open price courses, pay what you want courses. We got 2 coming up where I am here. I'm in the Ardèche region of France on a 7-hectare farm, and we're just we're coming out of doing the chestnuts, and we're into the selling the chestnut bit. So I'll just show some of the stuff we do. This is chestnut flour. And then we got chestnut cream, which is nice. I don't actually like it very much, but anyway, we got normal chestnuts in a pot, which people do all kinds of stuff with. I really don't want to know what they do with them, but anyway, they seem to like them. They're just in a pot. And then we got special ones, which is this is chestnut cream with a bit of orange in it. So that's some of our products, and so here is also, it's like a demonstration and teaching center where I'm based here. I'm also based in another one in Brittany. I've got two places. I'm looking at my little square where I appear on the screen, which is really annoying. I remember having to avoid doing that. Anyway, so all that got really funky, and we've got I don't know how many people who are now accredited as designers and engineers and stuff like that. And amongst them, there are people who are architects, but the background is architecture, background is farming, background is this, that, and the other. We've had a lot of I've had Darren Doherty's come over here, and he's run several courses on holistic landscape management and keyline design and all this sort of stuff. And now we've got like our own specialists, French-speaking specialists on that, which is really, really interesting and really good, because that's what Darren does, and what we'll be trying to really encourage people to understand is, and this is a massive part of the message we put out all the time, is that permaculture is a serious engineering system, which we use to do holistic landscape management, to design farms, design cities, design villages, design towns, whatever. And the permaculture designers or permaculture engineers, we're serious people, and we know what we're talking about, and we know what we're doing. And little by little, we've managed to keep that message going, despite the which I sort of predicted would happen if when permaculture became more and more popular, it started to get more and more appropriated by the sort of machine, if you like. So we've had quite a few books brought out by people who obviously don't know what they're talking about with permaculture. and people going around giving talks about sort of what we tend to call like fluffy permaculture or something like that, which is, and we've managed to maintain, and the teams that I work with over here, we're really, really serious people. It's like we're into social change. We're into, and we study a lot in terms of economics. It was, in people care stuff, which is all about anthropology, paleoanthropology, neuroscience, psychology, economy, and all this kind of stuff. So we're like really into those modules. We're trying to go as far as we can with training when we're training people to get them to really be able to understand that part, and also obviously the land, the earth care, I think you call it. It's all different farming, a lot of big scale agroforestry systems down to small scale forest garden systems, all this sort of stuff. So we're really it's really quite big over here. It's really very active, and that's great. The right, okay, shall I just carry on there? The questions that are at the end, are they?
Questions at the end if you prefer, but you can also take them now if you want to. It's your preference, really, Steve.
I'll just carry on a little bit, if that's all right, and then you can ask me some questions. So, in the design was to get stuff like quite sorted in France, and then to what I've been sort of pushing for this move towards is to stop talking. Well, we obviously in permaculture design we often have a problem with national boundaries and stuff like that. Because we see them as being much less interesting than bioregionalism and stuff like that. So natural boundaries tend to be like a big handicap and things. So, but the world is actually I don't like to use the word divided up, but it's got all these different language zones, and one of the very big language zones, of course, is French. I think French is it's either the second or third most spoken language in the world. And what is very interesting for us in France is that, well, obviously everybody's probably heard about climate change and all this sort of stuff. Yeah, you've probably heard about that. It's a lot in the news. Well, obviously, if you're in agriculture, we're like in the front line of that. We're actually seeing it happen. We're having to change. In southern Italy, for example, in southern Spain, and it's starting in southern France, where people are starting to go, okay, well, we'll dig up the olives and let's put papaya in and mangoes and avocados and stuff like that, because why would we carry on struggling with olives? And so we move the olives further north. And viticulture over here in the vine, there's obviously a lot of big wine production in France. They're probably going the wrong way, which is up. Because if you go up, eventually you can't go any higher. It's probably better to go north. So that's there's a lot of there's several permaculture designers who are working in the wine with wine and vineyards and stuff like that, looking at developing different techniques, different methods and stuff like that, which tend to be agro-silvo. I don't know how you say this in English. It's agro-silvopastoralism, which is everything like that altogether. Like having trees and vineyards, having animals going in the vineyards during the winter, all this sort of stuff. Anyway, it's all quite cool. If you like wine, which was from Brittany, which is cider, so it's not. We used to produce a lot of cider, and now it's mainly apple juice because people are moving away from drinking cider and they're really interested in apple juice. So there we are. So what we've been doing recently is expanding out. What we set up now is the University of French language university, if you like. It's Université Permaculture francophone. So it's the University of francophone. Francophone, does that work in English? Francophone, is that right? Permaculture. And what is really great with that is that I've worked quite a lot in Africa, most recently in Guinea, which was quite fun because it was a course run by organized by Intracen, which is a part of the United Nations, and they organized two courses over there, two PDCs, which I did by video, which is the first time I've done that, but it seemed to work okay. Because the afternoons they had people on site who took them out onto the land and they did stuff, you know. And so. But that was quite fun to be taken on by such a big organization as the United Nations to to run courses, and so that was really good. And we've now got Dr. Diawara, and he's now accredited. He's got his diploma in permaculture, in applied permaculture. And we've now set up this university, a French language university. And one of the main reasons for that is to make it so that France isn't the center of stuff. And that is really interesting for us in France, because a lot of the techniques and methods and stuff that we need to learn, they already know about in Africa. Right, because it's been hotter there for longer, so they've got lots of stuff they've adapted. You're starting to hear more about them. I see on LinkedIn and things like that people talk about Zai and the East African dark earths and all this kind of stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on, which is really quite interesting. And so we're actually learning a lot from these sort of ancestral techniques from East African countries, and and so what we're doing there is we've set up a system where we have some people have a referent. Does that English? Somebody in the country who's the sort of spokesperson for that company, that country, and they're now you can see them on the website of the UPF, which is Université Permaculture francophone. And what's really great about that is mainly the people from East Africa. They've all got doctorates. They're all doctors of agronomy, biology, ecology, and it's only us over here who haven't got any doctorates at all. So that's really cool. So the whole idea of that is to create an infrastructure where we can exchange information in a much more sort of in a French language, in a fluid way, and to partnership and to help each other out, because obviously permaculture is very dominated by the English language, and there's some stuff which just doesn't translate from English to French and doesn't translate from French to English. So we actually need to work a lot of this stuff out ourselves. Excuse me. So there we are. So that's there's probably other stuff I can talk about, but anyway, that's don't want to bore you. So yeah, if anybody's got some questions, I'm listening, hopefully.
Hey, any questions out there? Either just raise your hand or unmute and talk. So, Colleen, you're from France. Any questions? Oh, you're living in France. So.
Bernie is raising his hand.
Yes. Hi, Steve. Hi, everyone. Yes, actually, I do live in France. I'm from Belgium, but I moved to France about 10 years ago, and I did my PDC in Portugal in English, and I did my diploma with Luby McNamara in England. So I'm a bit affiliated to the UK association as well, Permaculture UK Association. For me, I go to the national gathering, Permaculture National Gathering in France regularly and give some workshops. And for me, I would like to give you, I have a question maybe, but maybe Steve, you can help me with this, but this is a bit strange for me and difficult to get into the permaculture French system. For me, it's much easier to get into the UK association than to the Université Populaire de Permaculture or Brin de Paille. For example, I submitted several emails to the permaculture, to the Université de Permaculture, Populaire de Permaculture, to say that I got a diploma and I want to be registered as a permaculture diploma holder, and never got any answer several times. So it's like it's hard to enter into the system, and with Brin de Paille, it was also quite difficult to get introduced and to work with them. And I wonder if it's specific to French, even though French is my mother tongue. I'm just wondering if Steve, you can have the same impression coming from another country as well, but you were at the starting point here, so it's probably different. But for me, for example, it's not very easy to get in contact with all the networks, permaculture networks in France, even though I'm running workshops and things like that here.
Okay, yeah, the Université Populaire has continued going, which basically wasn't part of the design. And it's now, it looks like it's going to merge with Brin de Paille. And Brin de Paille has they've taken on a new, I have no idea why you say that in English, office people, whatever, who are running it. And they're starting to expand it and open it up a bit and stuff like that. Yes, I can understand your point of view. The whole thing here has been a lot of us have been trying to avoid creating things like the British Permaculture Association. It has to be said, to be frank. One of the reasons being is we don't want a great big, massive, huge, dominant association that sits like a, I don't know, I better not be more diplomatic there. They do lots of great stuff, I'm sure. But what happens? Okay, what happens if you do it? We're all permaculture designers. We study systems. We look at them and go, what happens? You get a lot of pioneer people who come along and they set stuff up. So we had all these sort of pioneer people setting up the Université Populaire, so they're setting up the different stuff, they're setting up Brin de Paille. And then after that, you get the people who move in who do the administration, and they're much less pioneer very often than the people who set things up. So you've got Terre de Liens over here, you've got all these different things, which are great stuff, and they're going on. But little by little, they get taken over by people who are just administrating them, and they just become a sort of a cow which milks itself. And and they stagnate, and then they tend to then stifle innovation and creativity. So the direction we wanted to go here was to run. My objective, okay, to running courses and stuff like that, setting up the UPP, Université Populaire de Permaculture, was to just simply to sort of create to teach as many people as possible to become permaculture designers, with the objective of creating a sort of informal network of people who are living in different villages, towns, neighborhoods, and all this sort of stuff, who are then going to become active and start changing things. So it's kind of informal, and the best way into the French permaculture network is through a local association. The annual big meetup and stuff like that is a bit of a beer fest, and there's a bit of music sometimes, and it actually didn't go into so back in hang on, I've got the dates actually. Was it back in 2009? We organized and ran the first permaculture festival. We had like about 500 people come in. It was limited to 500 people, and it was a really big success. The year after that, we had it moved to Belgium. I don't know if you went to it, and there was, I don't know, Nico, you said there was something like 2,000 people or something like that went through. So it went from like 500 to 2,000 or something like that. It's just like extraordinary. We were going to do it the year after that, but that all went badly wrong because the site was going to happen. There was a bridge and it collapsed and all kind of stuff. So that went wrong, and it got taken over by Brand de Pin, and they started to do the sort of annual thing. And it's really nice to just go and see people, meet up, and have a chat with people and listen to a few talks and stuff like that. But it's quite a kind of informal. So your best way into French permaculture is not through the national associations, because they're little things. They're not like the British ones. It's through the local associations, which leads me on to the sort of next bit, which we're sort of preparing to launch. Right. A bit of background. Some people, how can I put this? It's kind of difficult. I was asked to give a talk in one area not very far from here, and they give a talk about permaculture, and they said, please don't use the word permaculture during your talk, because all the farmers around here says that it really gets up their nose when people start talking about permaculture, which is kind of which is kind of weird. But anyway, so there are people who have had they've read the wrong book, or they've watched the wrong YouTube whatever tutorial or stuff like that, and they just think it's like lightweight, fluffy, bunny hugging sort of like thing, which we've tried to avoid giving that image. So anyway, okay. So the part of the next phase is to go further on than Hopkins and the company, the transition movement, which has sort of like run out of steam a bit, and it's also lost its foundations in permaculture design. If I go into transition people now, very often they'll be talking about stuff about, they'll go, well, you talk about permaculture, you go, yeah, it's nothing to do with us. We go, well, actually, the transition movement is based on permaculture design. You should be designing your ship. So we're setting up, we're launching, I suppose, like a movement, but it's like well, I prefer to call it an encouragement, actually, rather than a movement. And it's a small m anyway, and it's called Max 13 to avoid using the word permaculture. And it's simply, it's like a document which gives like step-by-step ways that people can reclaim their local community. They can stimulate their local economy. They can start. The basic idea is like, right, I live in a village, or I live in a neighborhood, or wherever you live. It's absolutely obscene that I'm living in a village or something like that, and there's people in that same village who don't have enough to eat, can't heat their houses, who can't, excuse me, I get a bit annoyed about this, who are in sort of precarity, is that an English word? Anyway, either financial, food, fuel, or they're living in shoddy housing, which is just not fit for being lived in, all this kind of stuff. That is, you know, is this, what were we like, 2025, seriously? So this should not be happening. So Max 13 is a way for people to appropriate permaculture design, but it's not on the can. It's not written permaculture on the can. It's just written Max 13. And it's a series of protocols, which are basically suggestions about how you can reclaim your power and reclaim your community and start to produce food, start to go around to neighbors' house and insulate them, go around to make sure that everybody's got enough to eat, go around and make sure that the water's being treated properly, and then you know it's just shitting in the river. And to take local community control of energy production, holistic landscape management, and start integrating all this stuff together, which is what basically permaculture is about. Now, this is sort of a culmination of the design, which was to teach as many people as possible, so that they're all out there, they know how to do permaculture design, and then they appropriate Max 13. And they then go and start doing that in their local area, in their is to create an urban village, redo their own villages, hamlets, or or whatever, small towns and everything like that. That's a really amazing photograph that's just popped up there. I don't know who that is. So I don't know if that answers your question, but go local. That's the best way. There's a very scary photograph just popped up. I don't know who it is. Oh, it was you, is it? Okay. All right. Any other questions? Another bit of tea.
Any more questions, please?
Don't be shy.
Yeah, I'd like to give a question. Hi, I'm Lumia. I'm a Finnish person living in Finland, and thank you for the presentation so far. It's been very interesting. And what my question is, like, how do you keep the movement moving? Like when we try to kind of spread the word here and teach people, it's like everyone likes it very much, but the movement doesn't really move forward. It doesn't, this ball doesn't really start rolling. What's your wisdom there? What's happened in France that's made it work?
It's not perfect in France. I mean, there's still people. A lot of people go around thinking that permaculture is about raised beds and hugelkultur and you know, stuff like that. We've actually put a lot of effort into trying to promote the idea that basically permaculture is about social reconstruction, and it's about taking back power and responsibility, which is so we always tend to go back to Mollis and the stuff like that. It's been a lot of work, and it's been frankly a bit of a struggle at times. And you feel a bit like Sisyphus, you know, you're pushing a rock up a hill and you're hoping it'll roll over the other side, which it eventually did. And we're now pushing another rock up the hill, which is Max 13, and hoping that will just roll down the other side and become viral. We have to. We've been spending quite a lot of time recently reaching out as much as we can with our design work and with teaching and stuff like that towards the younger generations, the so-called Gen Z and all this sort of stuff. And that is sort of next big thing really is really encouraging sort of the younger people who is of eco anxiety and climate burnout and all this sort of stuff to get involved, and that's what Max 13 is about. So it's trying to use the weapons of my enemy against my enemy sort of thing, which is, so we're using a lot of marketing and stuff like that to try and push this forward, and trying to be as I don't like to use the word sexy, but it's like being as sexy as possible. So when we've got things like the university, the French language university, which is lots of people from Africa and all this kind of stuff, it just gives this sort of atmosphere of being that really happening and the place to be and the thing to do, and just banging on and banging on and banging on all the time and getting people out there designing and setting stuff up, setting projects up. One of the things we've said a lot in France, which is we don't care if you call it permaculture or not. It's not important. The important thing is you've got the engineering system, and you know, as I say to people, you know, I've been doing this since 1990, and I'm always looking for the next best thing, and I haven't found it yet. Permaculture design is, I haven't actually found anything better than it. Everything else is fragmented. You've got like syntropic farming or whatever it is. You've got this, you've got that, you've got you've got regenerative hydrology, but it's all fragmented. It's, you know, we do, I say to people all the time, we do all of that. So it's like, we, a long time ago, we stopped going on about the problems and we just started talking about the solutions. Okay, if you want to learn how to deal with wildfires, well, come and do a course with us. If you want to learn how to build up a local economy and why you should do it, come and do stuff with us. So it's very broad, and also really present that permaculture designers are just, they should always be like moving on and getting more information, studying more stuff. You know, when I'm at the beginning, it was all about, you know, especially much more in farming and and animal husbandry, all this sort of stuff. And then I started to study things like neuroscience, psychology, anthropology, paleoanthropology, and economics and stuff like that, to then be able to talk about human beings. So I haven't got the other thing, of course, we always talk about is everything depends on the context. So what has worked more or less in France probably won't work in Norway. I don't know. You have to see what are people worried about? Okay, so I talk about this a lot, which is where are the open doors? Okay, or where are the doors which are only partially open, which I can just push open? I don't go pushing on doors which are shut. It's a waste of time. Just find the doors which are a little bit open, push them open, and try and find allies, and who are doing stuff, find allies and create a. But for me, permaculture is always a movement with a small m. It's not a big movement. It's something which can be behind other movements, like Max 13. But it is an engineering system at the end of the day, which is great. And in France, it works really well. A lot of people in France will refer to themselves not as designers, but as permaculture engineers, which isn't sort of like a greasy spanner and all this sort of stuff. It actually means somebody who designs and then creates. It's the two together. As designers, they just sound like people who design stuff on a bit of paper and or on a computer or something like that. Engineer sounds like somebody who's actually literally means somebody who designs stuff and then actually and then builds it and creates it. And it's also gives a wider idea. Over here, you'll be an agronomist. An agronomist is actually would be referred to as being an agriculture engineer, which I think it happens in French as well. Anyway, I hope that's replied to your question, but good luck with that anyway. And just to make it as sexy as possible and just really go after the Gen Zs, and because they're upset, you know, they're just over 50% of them think there's no future. It's like,
Yeah, that's so cool. Oh, thank you very much.
Pleasure. Yeah. Okay, any other questions?
Anne, please.
Hi, Steve. I enjoy your Substack as a Substack
Thanks.
writer myself. I'm one of those fluffy fragments. I'm the herbal medicine person in the woodpile. And I'm doing session 3. But what interests me really about what you're saying, I see where I'm coming from, the herbal medicine side, as a way in. And I'm always really keen to sort of say to people, look, there's a big lot more out there, and referring them onto permaculture. But one of the things that I'm really concerned about is where are the resources that we can access. And in Europe, there's all this agroforestry stuff and support for commercial producers and all that. And I just wonder, how much access have you found, if any, to those kind of resources that ought to be available to growers and beyond?
Well, I've worked. That works in two ways in many ways. Okay, right. There's the National Association of Agroforestry in France, who I've worked with and we're in communication with, and then we've got permaculture engineers who are specialized in agroforestry, and they go. So there's Frank Chevalier, Marlene Vissac, who people who they go around to work with farmers to install like permaculture designed agroforestry systems or silver agropastoralist systems and stuff like that. So that's we try and connect in, but I understand what you're saying in a way, because I actually spent quite a lot of time. I wasted quite a lot of time trying to create a sort of union of oh gosh, it's all in French in my head. Sorry, of different organizations. There's over in France, we had this guy who died a few years ago called Pierre Rabhi, who set up I think he called it agroecology, and he set up a whole sort of movement with an air, which are capital M, called les colibris and stuff like that. The agroforestry people, the different organizations, anyway, and biomimicry, and anyway, when we organized the first permaculture festival, we invited all these people to come for a round table to discuss how we could unite our force and to go on and then just present, just change France and then then everything else all around it. There's only one person turned up, and there's only one person replied. And so we spent, I spent, quite a lot of time, and other people as well, trying to get these people on board. But they were too busy running their movements with the big M movement. So, okay, we'll let that go. So we've, what has happened is like the Pierre Rabhi Association, the Colibri and stuff like that. They run courses, which is they teach people about agroecology. And then I've had hundreds and hundreds of people who've done that course, and they come to do permaculture courses with me to get the rest of the story. So that's worked as well. So it's sort of like informal networks, basically people. Yeah, I'm not herbal medicine is great. It's just as a designer, it's like we're always trying to address the cause and not the symptom. And so, like I was saying, like if you've got people who are living in a neighborhood, in a city neighborhood, or say in a village, and they're living in a house which is broken down, doesn't hard to heat, it's got mold running on the walls, they've got a rubbish job, or they've got 3 or 4 jobs, all this sort of stuff. Well, they're going to get ill. If you live in a city, you're ill basically. And so the whole idea is to change all of that, and then of course, people need a bit of some stuff to help them get along. So herbal medicine is great. I don't use it myself. I'm joking. I'm in the do nothing. I can't be bothered actually to take anything. So yeah, I probably should nowadays. Okay. So I hope that answers sort of explains a bit.
Thank you.
Sometimes I get to the end of what I'm saying and I can't remember what the question was. And I'm not sure if I answered the question, or it actually happens to be a lot.
It kind of helps to know that there are people out there who are barreling along, changing what they can. I think that's the important bit, isn't it? Rather than trying to change everything else.
People, they've been in all the media and all this sort of stuff. They've been, what's the guy's name in the United States? Donald Trump and everything. They go, oh, about Donald Trump and stuff like that. And you're going, yeah, but what you're seeing now is actually sort of like the end game of the dinosaur boomers, where we're sort of like everybody's sort of lined up. It's like Napoleonic Wars, where you got all these sort of the enemies lined up in front of each other and stuff like that. So everybody's out of the closet now, and you can see what's going on. And it's actually quite, in some ways, it's quite optimistic because it's all going wrong for all of that. And the more that goes wrong, the more easy it is for us. Permaculture has always been, because I've been in it for too long now, it goes up and down, or it has gone up and down, but depending on like the economy, the state of the economy of a particular country. The economy starts going down and people get really interested in permaculture. It goes back up again. You go, no, I don't need that. And it goes down. Oh, permaculture, and it goes back up again. That seems to have flattened out a bit now. And people are more consistent with it. And but the next phase, like I was saying, in France is with like Max 13, is really going to the Gen Zs, the younger generation, presenting like a transgenerational thing, which is Max 13, and just saying, okay, right, let's start putting into place the sort of phrase that goes with that is the same planet, a different world. And just start building this different world, and that's actually already happening. And it's really interesting. It's underneath the radar. It's not in the newspapers. You occasionally see a little article about it, stuff like that. But there's a lot of people, younger people, for example, where I work in Brittany. A lot of my 3 kids are there. Their colleagues who are at their college and lycée with, a lot of them left, and they left Brittany, went into France to find jobs and stuff like that. Then it's sort of like we had this sort of economic crisis and stuff like that, and loads of them, they've all come back into Brittany. And in Brittany, it's a little bit pioneer in terms of what can happen in a country Brittany was the first place really that started to have the microbreweries, which came over from England, started to have microbreweries. Now they're all over France. You can't actually throw a stick in France now without hitting a microbrewery. But in Brittany now, there's more and more and more associations, activities, projects. There's one started about 3 or 4 years ago, which is called Amour Léger, which is like lightweight hamlets, which is convincing the local, I don't know, local authority or whatever it's called, the mayor or whatever, to have area, to put aside areas, and instead of building like concrete blockhouses on them, to do straw bale, to do vardos, to do yurts and stuff like that, and just have so people can have a very cheap, build themselves something really cheap, which can actually be taken down afterwards. And that is starting to get going. There's people in Brittany now producing tea, green tea, black tea. What's that stuff called? Wasabi. There's all kinds of. It's just really, really starting to happen, and it's all underneath the radar. But little by little, the different world is being built and put into place. And what is happening, this is what we talk about, I've been talking about for like 30 years now, is the attractive force, which is that you create something, instead of trying to push people and argue with them to change stuff here, you just encourage that, they just create something which is so attractive that they just come over to it themselves. Instead, you don't fight with them to get them to stop doing this, stop doing that. Don't say to them like, stop using the airplanes because they're destroying the stratosphere and all this sort of stuff, and it's horrible. So just propose like some really good holidays at your place, and things like that, and just like local holidays. Why would you travel off to Thailand or something where you can? You're in France. I mean, France, you can go to the north of France, which is like up near Belgium, stuff like that. It's completely different. So the south of France, I'm in the Ardèche. I'm in the middle of the Ardèche. If I walk about 2 hours up and north, I go up to about 1,200 meters, 1,200 meters, where I'm at 600 meters. And if I go down, in about 20 minutes in a car, for example, 20-minute drive, and the whole landscape becomes much more Mediterranean. The whole landscape completely changes. So you can actually just stay in this one department, and you can go to mountains, you can go skiing, you can go down, you can go to rivers, you've got like a good sort of completely Mediterranean type landscape and stuff like that. So it's a really big country, and there's just loads and loads of different types of well, why would you, as people say that, why would I go out of France to go on holiday? Everything's here, encouraging that, attracting people towards stuff instead of fighting them and pushing them and stuff. Oh, yeah. I seem to be going, am I going on too long here? I don't know.
No, Steve, no worries. I have seen Steve Hart. Yes, Steve, please, you had a question. We can't hear you, Steve. We can't hear you.
You have to put your microphone on.
Try that. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, better.
Technology. I'm a dinosaur. Great to see you again, Steve, after so many years. We bumped into each other back in that festival that you mentioned, and also the conference in Belgium. And I'd just like to applaud you for holding the whole French Union, Permaculture Union together for so many years. Both you and I know full well the challenges that Lumia mentioned of actually keeping the networks alive and vibrant and ongoing. Just simply a loud congratulations for hanging in there, and I like your style.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's very kind of you to say that. Yeah, I'm actually getting a little bit tired of when I teach courses, which I do a bit, of actually still being the most radical person in the room. I mean, what is that about? That's just rubbish, There's all these sort of young people that they go, wow, wow, we can change. Well, yeah, seriously, work it out. It's not complicated. It's not bloody rocket science, is it? Well, it is a bit if you start talking about Keynesian multiplier effects and stuff like that in economics or whatever. But yeah, and so yeah, thanks very much. It's it's obviously not just me. There's a lot of people involved. But I think that the way that it's gone, which I think is a big advantage for us of being much more local than having sort of a monolithic national sort of thing, has been something that I really wanted to go in that direction of a flatland. And not have a sort of recreate these bloody pyramids that we have every day, power structures, which I find I don't like it. I don't want to hate people, anybody telling me what to do and stuff like that. So yeah, so I think it's good from that point of view. Yeah, thanks very much. Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah, 2009, something like that. Mind you, my concert and stuff like that is still talked about, apparently. All right, anybody else? If not, we'll have to knock it on the head soon because that's over an hour. So knock it on the head. We'll have to stop soon. Sorry, lapsing into idiom now.
Hey, Paulina, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, very well.
I was curious, maybe you could give an advice, because as I feel you might have very broad understanding of how is permaculture movement at the moment worldwide and in the francophone world, but do you have an advice for someone who is only starting and is very interested but a bit lost with the enormous variety of information, and I just feel that most of it is so, yeah, as you said, fluffy. That's how I feel about many things that I find by myself, and so rare I find something that really resonates. So I was curious, maybe you have some advices where to dig, or where to find this good quality starting environment. Yeah.
Well, that's basically, as far as I'm concerned, it's down to you. It's like people say to me, yeah, maybe I'm doing a garden design for some people, and they're going, "So, Steve, what should I grow in my garden?" Let's go, "What do you like eating?" You know, it's like it's as simple as that, you know. Or a friend, a great British English designer, Phil Corbett, he designed a thing called the Coppice Orchard system, where he had 2 lines of apple trees and 1 line of pear trees. And people always said to him, "Well, why has he just got 1 line of pear trees? Why 2 lines of apples and 1 line of pears?" Well, the answer is obvious. He prefers apples to pears. He likes apples twice as much as he likes pears. So when people sort of look at that, and over here, I actually don't particularly like it, but the people use that David Holmgren's flower thing with the petals of different stuff. As far as I'm concerned, a good permaculture designer or permaculture engineer is somebody who is capable of working with architects, working with somebody who's got a bulldozer, working with doing landscape, building swales, or whatever it is. Basically, you can do all of that, but you've got something which is your speciality. I work with Karine Méry, for example, and she's an architect, and she's a permaculture designer, but she specializes in architecture because she's basically a qualified trained architect. Marlene Visak, she's capable of doing a lot of different stuff in permaculture, designing sort of whole systems, but she's specialized much more in regenerative hydrology and keyline design and stuff like that. So I think that's the interesting thing to do, if I'm understanding your question in the right way, is it's like people say to me, "Yeah, you do." I've got market gardens here, but I actually hate gardens. I'm one of these permaculture designers. Actually, I like designing gardens and creating vegetable areas or farms or whatever and stuff like that. And I like eating the food, but in between the two, it doesn't interest me very much. I have to do it because we run gardens here. We've got market gardens, but I actually much prefer working with structures, building stuff. We just built a bridge here and stuff like that. So what is it you like doing?
No, but thank you actually for reply, because like the question was quite abstract, especially that you don't know my background, and like I understand that it's me who needs to know like what I like and where to develop. Now my background is more as a like in education field as a youth worker and working with children, and now like getting into build like basically I want to make a garden with children where I work, and this is why I dig into the topic. And,
Okay, there's some really good examples. Was it 2000? Was it called 2000 Trees or something like that? It was there's a place in Zimbabwe called Mbitsanai, and they started taking a lot of apprentices on the farm, and then some of those apprentices they went to South Africa and they started the 2000 Trees projects and stuff like that, which is basically and also the same thing in Zimbabwe, was teaching kids how to design their school garden, how to go into production, how to install hot water systems, how to make biochar, how to make whatever, install further, whatever. And then they go home and they help their parents who maybe got a garden or producing some food and stuff like that, because a lot of subsistence agriculture around, there needs to be more. And so they take these methods back home with them. So that's really interesting to work with like young kids. And they tend to be very, very up for it as well, because it's really fascinating, because it's so broad. I mean, one day I'm working with people looking at building design. Next thing I'm looking at regenerative hydrology, designing as whatever for people. And then I'm working on installing some. Well, just done one here actually, a hydrogen water turbine and stuff like that. So every day it's something different, and which actually scares people sometimes when they come and do the courses here, because we're all generalists but specialists in different areas. And we have to actually encourage people to go, yeah, but I've been doing this for 30 years, so that's why I know so much stuff. But get it out to the kids and get them going to back home and saying to their parents, so why are our neighbors living in poverty and misery and stuff like that, when we could just go there and sort the bloody thing out, excuse me. Get them going, boost them up. Good luck with that.
If I may add a comment there, Polina, whereabouts are you?
Most of the time in Latvia, so Baltic countries. But at the moment I'm living for a year in Iceland. So the garden is in Iceland, which is a bit funny in -15, but
The solution is invite Steve Reed to Iceland to run a PDC.
I know, there's no way that's going to happen. Do you know how much it costs to buy a pizza in Iceland? It's about like 30 euros for a pizza.
But actually there's one place that is as a permaculture farm in the north. So in the winter I even cannot visit them because of the closed roads, but I will visit them in
in terms of globally, just to go back to you asking about in the world, what is...
Yeah, maybe I meant, when I come back to continental Europe, back to Latvia, and then, because I feel like something I would love to develop in, but as far as I don't have background in architecture, engineering, or design, I feel very like alienated in the, like, I don't know where to go to learn about it, because I'm thinking even if I do permaculture design course, like in the long run, how really I can apply it with just like a one course. So I was even asking, maybe there is like, you mentioned university, but unfortunately I don't know French.
Okay. Yeah.
So will you, sorry, Steve, just a second. Will you be in Iceland in August?
No, I know they have a permaculture festival in August.
Okay, that's unfortunate. Sorry for that.
Yeah, I'm also very sorry for myself.
the starting place is to do a permaculture design course, frankly, with somebody who's experienced and qualified, really qualified as a proper designer engineer to run it. And what you'll get to see normally, what happens with it, because I've run too many now, is people go through all the different modules, because we do all the whole thing, the whole program. You know, we go from like city design through to growing veg, through to regenerative hydrology, silvopastoralism, all this sort of stuff. We did the whole thing. Is they look at that and they go, wow, well, it's a lot of stuff. And then they sort of look at things and go, well, actually, this sort of ties into what I've already got on board, or stuff I already know. Like you're talking about, you know, working with children, stuff like that. And then they sort of go away, and they then develop their capacities as being a permaculture designer, and then they present them. They do it in it goes more and more into their particular field of expertise. You see what I mean? Well, globally, one of the things that I've noticed is that I stopped flying years ago for obvious reasons. Well, obvious reasons, but also because the universe obviously didn't want me to fly anymore, because it just became absolutely ridiculous, my journeys. Excuse me. Is that I'm not. I did a lot of teaching in lots of different countries, and now I'm not needed anymore. There's people who go, oh, Steve, can you come over to our country and teach a course? Like, for example, in French-speaking Africa. And I go, but no, there's people already there who do it. They know the environment better than I do. They know the local stuff better than I do and stuff like that. So you ask them now. Don't ask me. You don't need us anymore. You know, you get on with it. There's people all around. You know, I don't need to go to Turkey anymore. I don't need to go to Tunisia. All the places I went to, I don't need to anymore. Big.
Okay.
Yeah.
If there are no more questions, then I'd like to close the session. Steve, one last question.
Yeah, just before we leave, Paulina, did you say you're originally from Slovakia?
No, from Latvia.
Latvia, sorry.
Okay. Well, I forgot to lock the chickens in, the hens in, so I need to go rush out. And I just realized. And
okay, Steve, thank you very much. This was awesome. Great time.
Thank you very much for
Thank
organizing it. Very nice of you to invite me. Thank you. Thanks everybody for turning up. I didn't think there'd be anybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay, Steve.
Okay,
have a good
bye.
time.
Very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.